Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Star Wars Stuff Podcast. My name is David,
And I'm Colin.
and this is where we talk all things Star Wars. And specifically today, it is the Skeleton Eve time. We're about to watch the first two episodes on Disney Plus. A lot of people are at movie theaters right now, or actually currently watching it as of this moment because it dropped at this specific time. But people overseas, I believe in the UK, have already seen the first two episodes at theaters, and we have some of their reactions. We'll go over them. But before we get started here, we are going to recognize our top tier Patreon supporters out there: Darth Ace 1, Liam Callan, Chris Simpson, Kevin Leininger, Devin McCaffrey, Drew Peters, Zach Netzel, Maya Morris, Makatal Tala, Adam Haber, who I'm sure is watching us, Brad Mackey, Front Row King, and Darth Beard. Thank you so much for all the awesome love and support out there. And also, we want to recognize Legion Sabers. Go to legionsabers.com, use the code STUFF at checkout. You get 50% off your order, and I believe the $300 off the lightsaber is up. I don't know if you want to check the website because it was going to end at Black Friday. So go check them out and buy your next lightsabers from them. We totally endorse them, and we might be hanging out with them sooner than I think, as Colin told me before the show. So check them out, legionsabers.com. So of course, it is the day that we've been waiting for years.
This is it.
They shot Skeleton Crew years and years ago. We're almost in the year 2025. At the very bitter end of 2024, we're finally getting the show that has been talked about. We were in London last year, Colin and I, and we saw the very first trailer. My thoughts about that trailer were that it was really, really dark. It was dark in tone. It was dark in lighting. There was a lot of shots at night in the suburbs that we've kind of come to see in the trailers. Yeah. So what do you think we're going to get?
So I honestly think from the trailer that we got all the way in London, compared to, of the newer stuff we've seen now, I think the tone has changed just slightly. And when that show was announced, they were talking about how it was going to be compared to Stranger Things and some of these other, shows from the 80s, and you got that kind of mix of stuff from the 80s now and how the 80s is kind of portrayed like in present day and how people look back at it. And I think that's why people were thinking it was going to have that Stranger Things tone. Because David was right. That trailer that dropped in London was darker. It was different. That's the first time I'm seeing Neil's actual mouth, by the way. That's crazy. But yeah, no, I honestly think that they've changed the tone slightly, because if you watch the trailer, it really does feel like a show like from the 80s. It feels like it's straight out of the 80s. It doesn't feel like Stranger Things, but trailers can always be misleading. It could have a very similar tone to Stranger Things, but from the trailers that we've gotten since London, it's been more upbeat. It's been more fun. They even played a song from the 80s, and they just changed the lyrics to Huttese. So I can definitely see it being more upbeat and more fun than what we were all anticipating from the trailer that we got in London. I'm excited either way. I woke up this morning. I put on my Skeleton Crew shirt from a Star Wars Celebration London, and then my wife and I got the new Lego set of the Onyx Cinder, and we've been building that. And it's just, I'm hyped up, man. I'm excited for more Star Wars. I'm excited for more content. I'm excited for more lore added to Star Wars. I'm so excited. And for everyone that has a chance to go see it in the theater, enjoy it. I am so excited for this. Because it just feels like going home every time that something new Star Wars comes out. So I just can't wait to sit back and relax and just get taken back in and then come back and just be hyped up about it and talk about it. So I am over the moon. I am so thrilled.
So yeah, like I said earlier, there are people right now in movie theaters across our country watching the first episode right now. But this weekend, some people had a chance in the UK to watch it. I have some of the reviews right here, and I'll put them up on screen. I'll read them for you. So Brandon Norwood, he says, we can tweet about Skeleton Crew. Nice to have a sense of wonder in the Star Wars universe. Having kids be the center of this helps greatly. Neil Vag says, the first 2 episodes of Skeleton Crew recapture the magic of the 80s Amblin movies. It's the franchise at its most family-friendly, embracing its silliness alongside a wondrous sense of adventure. A brilliant Star Wars introduction for any younglings in the audience. Thomas says, the first 2 episodes of Skeleton Crew are a lot of fun. This series brings a refreshing perspective by expanding the Star Wars universe in exciting new ways. It's a love letter to children's adventure films from the 80s. And the last one I got is from Phil. John Watts' Skeleton Crew is a blast. The series effortlessly captures the spirit of the Goonies to deliver a fun, kid-centric Star Wars adventure. It's an energetic, fun story that expands the sandbox with its lighthearted tone. Great score, great performances, solid start. And those are the first 2 episode reactions. So, yeah, this is John Watts' idea. This is his baby. He was on the set of, I believe, No Way Home. John Watts directed the Homecoming trilogy for Spider-Man, and Jon Favreau is of course, Happy. And he's an actor in of course, everyone that's watching this knows No Way Home. But on the set, John Watts pitched the Skeleton Crew idea to Jon Favreau, kind of like, I don't know, like very, very much like off the cuff. And to John Watts' surprise, Jon Favreau said, "Oh, okay, so you want me to produce this? Me and Dave Filoni produces? We can do that." And he was just like, "Okay, yeah, let's do that." And it was a very organic thing that happened. And I'm not sure if he got Skeleton Crew to be greenlit via Favreau, via unconventional means, because traditionally what we all know is that you have to go through a series of meetings with certain higher ups at Disney, and of course Jon Favreau has a lot of pull now, and of course Dave Filoni is one of the chief creative officers. But was this kind of shepherded and kind of led up to the top of the ranks, up to the president of Lucasfilm there, via Jon Favreau, or was this kind of like one of those things where John Watts kind of got this show on the merit of him just having the tremendous success he had with the Homecoming trilogy, and the fact that they had experience with working with John Watts? What do you think, Colin?
Man, I think that the whole experience of jumping from where John Watts was at from No Way Home to Skeleton Crew, I think it's going to be a really interesting vibe of, I mean, because if you jump from a film like all of the Spider-Man films, and he almost directed the new Fantastic Four, and then they kind of switched streams, and now he's doing this. I think we're going to see a similar tone to the Spider-Man films, but not to where it's like on point. And kind of going back to what we were talking about with the same tone as Stranger Things and stuff like that. I think we're jumping into this where I think everyone is expecting, something similar, something different. But honestly, I think it's going to go in a very different way than a lot of us, expect, because trailers can be misleading or they can be very, very spot on. And I think John Watts is very passionate about every project that he does. So I think we're definitely going to see the fan of John Watts come out in this, and he collabed with so many great people. I'm not sure if you guys saw the round the director round table that they did a couple of weeks ago, but they really talked about all of their journeys getting into Skeleton Crew, and they also talked about how inspired they were about all these films that and different projects that came out in the 80s. So I think it is gonna feel with that 80s vibe, but also it's gonna be something new. And I think John Watts is a very perfect person to do that, because watching Spider-Man, in a way, I kind of felt he really nailed the of the original take from Stan Lee of what Spider-Man was in the comics. And not saying that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire's stories were not accurate to the comics, but to me it just felt like Tom Holland was like, it just felt comic accurate, if that makes sense. And that's my point of view, and if people don't agree, that's fine, but I just feel very similar to that. And I think that that's going to be something that John Watts nails in this, where it's going to be Star Wars, but it's going to be different at the same time.
Yeah, I just go back and think about, we talk about like JJ, he had the tremendous pressure of bringing Star Wars back. Think about the tremendous pressure that John Watts had with Spider-Man and bringing him back, bringing him into the MCU for the first time with his standalone films. It's incredible, man. And like you said, he was given the right to direct Fantastic Four. And he said, I'd rather do a Star Wars TV show. That's how big of a Star Wars fan he is. You think about when, I don't know how many people here are Marvel fans, but Fantastic Four it means a lot to Marvel. I know it means a lot to Kevin Feige. And they're an important group of superheroes for that franchise, and that has to really stick the landing. They got Matt Shakman, who's done a lot of great stuff with WandaVision and Agatha all along, so I think they're fine. But John Watts really wanting to do this story, it feels like he's had this in his head for a long time. And going back to what you said about his roundtables that he did, he talks about how he grew up in Colorado. He would go off on his own adventures when he was a kid, when he was the age of the kids in Skeleton Crew, about 12 years old, into the woods, and just imagine going to like different worlds. And I think that's what a lot of us did when we were kids. I was lucky enough to have woods in the back of my house as well, and we used to go exploring back there and go play and stuff. And he's bringing that experience to this show and kind of bringing the wonder back to Star Wars with Skeleton Crew. I'm really excited to see that kind of brought to the forefront and see what he does. And from all these reviews, they're all pretty glowing. And from the trailer, all the trailers, all the media we got, it looks like he's really achieved that. And going all the way back to 2017 at Star Wars Celebration Orlando, George Lucas said, I'll get in trouble for this, but Star Wars is for 12-year-olds, and this is starring a bunch of 12-year-olds essentially. So we're going to get a lot of, I think, what George Lucas kind of intended for what Star Wars should be and is the core of Star Wars. I know Star Wars, we talk about all the time on the podcast, is it's like a own genre where you could do like anything under the sun, but in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, I think, and this is actually a conversation that I've had with my older brother recently. Star Wars has changed a lot from what we knew as kids. And, when Disney got the rights to Star Wars, they really upped the ante on different things. And now there's more projects, and for Star Wars back in the day, it was a really casual thing, right? So you had episodes 1 through 6, you had the Clone Wars, and that was really it. You of course had the Ewok movies, and you had like some of the other cartoon stuff, but jumping to where we are now, it's crazy. You've got so many live action shows. You have all of Clone Wars to fully really appreciate the entire prequel trilogy. You have Star Wars Rebels. You have all these games too that are now like canon to the to the actual whole Star Wars universe. So if you really want to understand everything like about Star Wars, you truly have to watch all of that. And I think that's where where some of those fans that were that were big fans back in the day kind of lost interest because of there's so much stuff to keep up with. I am not one of those people, but I understand where they're coming from, because not everyone has time. Not everyone has time to watch all of that. So it's really interesting to see like of where and how far Star Wars has come. To me, I am happy with all of the new things being added. If you guys haven't yet, I'm just going to show this really quick. Check out this encyclopedia if you really, really want to be caught up with Star Wars, because it's got everything up to date except Skeleton Crew. I think that's the only thing that is not in there, but it's so cool. It's awesome. So honestly, there is a lot, but I'm telling you, it's worth it. It is worth it to get to the point of where we are now in the fandom, and Skeleton Crew is just going to add to it. It really is. And who knows, we might see some familiar faces because we know there is already going to be some Easter eggs from the Ewok movies, probably something from the holiday special. We might see a Hondo Ohnaka. We even talked about on the last podcast that we did that we might see Maz Kanata, which would be awesome, because that might explain how she got the Luke Skywalker saber. If you want the full kind of theory on that, you should definitely watch our last episode, because James, David, and I were really, really cooking on that last one. But yeah, no, there is a lot to look forward to. I love all the theories, but again, at the end of the day, it might not go the way that we think. So just kind of prepare yourself for that. But either way, to me, it's going to be awesome, and I feel like we're for a wild ride.
So yeah, I was going to ask you about your predictions on what we're going to get as far as characters go. I know we've mentioned Hondo, we mentioned possibly Kaz, or Maz. I'm sorry, I'm combining your names. Who do you think that we'll maybe run into somewhere along the season that we haven't mentioned? Who's a possibility?
Man.
And he just held up the encyclopedia too, and there's a lot of interesting information in that book that kind of I think everything that people are talking about right now are the fact that some people in there are confirmed not to have perished.
I think that Max Rebo will be mentioned at some point. I think his music will be mentioned. I think he will be mentioned, or he will make a cameo in some way, just because of as much as much crap as I get for talking about Max Rebo so much. I think the fans really like him, and I think he will probably make some type of cameo in some way, and that's just going to make me want to talk about him even more. But yeah, no, I think, all jokes aside, I really think Max Rebo is a good candidate to make some type of cameo in the show. Besides,
and speaking
Max,
of cameos, we have Craig 5 joining the podcast.
There you go. Hey.
After being tormented by trying to log into the studio for the last 3 hours.
Oh, I didn't know that. I guess that's a whole other story.
It's a story for another time.
I get in for a bit, and it wouldn't let me in.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. Better if I use sideways or what?
Yeah, that might work.
I think we'll probably get a cameo. I think we'll probably get a cameo from maybe some of the aliens that we saw in the cantina. All the way back in episode 4. I think seeing some of those characters would be very, very interesting. I could also see them doing a cameo of Kay Vess from Star Wars Outlaws. I could totally see that. She is a smuggler. and she has had a lot of run-in with pirates. Her story in Outlaws takes place between episode 5 and 6, and after she does pretty well for herself, and I could see her of just moving forward in the galaxy. So I could see her just kind of hanging out there. And also people love her creature. Like her creature, their creature's name is Nyx, and I think that would be really cool to see on screen. But yeah, so I honestly think that we could see those pirate type characters. I think Hondo is a perfect example of someone that would fit in there perfectly. But yeah, here's hoping. But yeah.
So that encyclopedia you held up in that book, it does state that Gorian Shard, I believe, who we all reference as Salad the Hutt, did die in The Mandalorian, or the Book of Boba Fett, I believe.
Yeah. Yes.
So, but the other thing too, I know people maybe scoff at the fact that maybe Max Rebo might show up. I think it is a possibility because when they went to design the character of Neil, who you see on screen if you're watching this on video, he was supposed to be in Ortolan. He was supposed to be Max Rebo's species, but for design reasons, they changed his species up to be another kind of elephantine type species where he actually has like nostrils at the end of his trunk, and he's a little bit different. He has hair on his head, of course, and of course the whole 4-limb debate is also ever present, and John Watts has brought that up as well in interviews.
This might be the moment that I will that will end the debate for ages. I've been talking with my friend Stephanie, and I was like, if someone from Lucasfilm actually tells me specifically saying, hey, Max Rebo has 4 limbs, I will end my crusade for Max Rebo having 4 limbs. Who knows? In one of these 2 episodes, or just one of these episodes that we could see Max Rebo walking on 2 limbs, then I will end it right there. I will there's no arguing after that, because we will forever have that on-screen moment of him having 2 limbs. So that would be the moment where I'd be like, all right, you guys are right. But for a long time, it has jumped back and forth in canon, that he has 4 limbs, that he has 2 limbs and 4 limbs. So I think that my debate is kind of valid because we've never gotten a actual canon answer from Lucasfilm that he has 4 limbs. We have not had that actual canon answer. So this might be the show that answers that. And if that's the case, then all the people that have been that they are the I call them 2-limb believers, you guys win. Go for it. That's fine. I will admit I was wrong and I have been defeated. But until then, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. So we have Craig 5 joining the podcast ever since the abrupt ending of the last podcast. So whatever you do, Craig, don't hit the end stream.
I will have my revenge.
Craig
Your
5's
revenge. We should have revenge on you. You're the one that did it.
So, Craig, we have not talked to you really in depth about Skeleton Crew. What are your thoughts, your ideas? How do you feel about this show?
I've been going pretty blind with this one. I've tried to stay. I watched a couple of teasers, but they always give away so much. I just want to see it with only I think I saw the main 2 trailers and 1 or 2 spots at the most. But I was like, I want to go in and just see what they got here. I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful. I'm trying to prepare myself. Like, this is going to be a kid show. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a kid anymore. I got to prepare myself and think of Goonies type show or, something like that.
Wait, okay. I just got inspired by a comment someone just said, and I don't think anyone has come up with this theory. And if no one had, if someone has, that's awesome. But how cool would it be if we got a laid back Jar Jar Binks, of where we like went to the pirate port where everyone's at, and like, all we know about Jar Jar of his fate afterwards was that he became a jester on Naboo.
Hang on a minute. I thought that JJ said we could see his bones in the sand of in episode 7, didn't he?
I think that was a joke. I don't think that.
That's canon for me, boys.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. So I think that that Jar Jar would be super, super cool.
Wouldn't he be depressed? Don't you think he would be depressed after ruining the galaxy, giving emergency powers? I mean,
I don't know, man. I could see. I mean, listen, the actor who played him, Ahmed Best, has been making a comeback, and I think that Jar Jar Binks could return to live action at some point very soon. And his character, I could see he could fit into the show very well. I think, like, I'm not saying as a main character, but like even just having him walk across screen would be very cool. Also, I'm just seeing this. Noah, I know that Neil is not Aortalin. You might have come halfway through. I was talking about Max Rebo making a cameo. But anyways, yeah. So I think Jar Jar Binks would be very, very he could fit into the world of what Skeleton Crew is trying to do. I think that would be very, very interesting.
I wouldn't put it past him to put a Gungan somewhere in the background, because we all know that this TV show. Yeah. Well, I mean, just a Gungan in general. Yeah. I mean, all of our thoughts, like way back 25, 26 years ago, we thought Jar Jar Binks was going to be more like a Chewbacca type character, more like gruff and physical, and not the way he actually turned out to be. But maybe we get a Gungan like that. I mean, that's a possibility. If John Watts is as big a Star Wars fan as I'm thinking he is, we might get some wild off the wall Easter eggs here. And going to one of those like shipping ports, there's so many opportunities for so many like cameos here and there. And of course, he's using one of the characters from A New Hope before it was even like called A New Hope, the original Star Wars film, in the Wolfman that they had in the cantina that George Lucas removed in the special edition.
Now,
and
it's his character or his species?
It's a species, I believe.
Okay.
I don't think it's that exact Wolfman from the cantina. And that character's name is Brutus.
He looks cool.
And they brought up that fact to John Watts in an interview, and he just kind of had a wry smile on his face. And I was like, okay, so what other kind of like cool little, like very, very super niche to all of the Star Wars fans that are in our bubble that we're going to get as like Easter eggs and stuff. And it seems like there's like a lot of like, I never watched this movie that much, but apparently there's like a lot of ties, it seems like, to like the Captain EO whole thing that was going on at Disney back in the day, because there's actually a character from Captain EO that's in Skeleton Crew that makes a little cameo. They've already shown him, like, I think his name is Fuzzball.
Yes. So for those who don't know what David's talking about, it was the kind of show that they had before Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. It was the show that was over at Epcot, and the one before Honey, I Shrunk the Audience was this one about Captain EO. It starred Michael Jackson. Jim Henson puppets were involved, and there was this creature that looked very similar to Max Rebo, but now more like Neil. So it would be cool to make that species cameo. I think that'd be really cool. I think that might, I could definitely see them having an Easter egg to that show in some way, because that show was, very Star Wars-ish, and I say if they do anything like the Jim Henson, like kind of, type vibe with the Muppets in some way. I'm not saying the Muppets, but like in some way, if they have that like type of characters in there, I think that could work. But yeah, no, oh man, it is going to be a really cool vibe of the show. I can't believe it is happening less than 30 minutes. I think it's crazy, but yeah.
So Craig, if you had a chance, we were talking about pitches earlier and how John Watts pitched Skeleton Crew. If you had a chance to pitch a show to Lucasfilm and they would green light whatever you pitch, what would you choose?
I mean, is there
I'm
any
curious about this
doubt
one.
what I would pick, boys?
Oh boy, here we go.
Adventures of Jar Jar.
The Adventures of Colin and Jar Jar.
Sign me up, man. Let's go.
I'd pre-order a ticket for that.
Definitely something centered around Luke. And
Yeah.
seeing post Return of the Jedi Luke, the Luke that we saw in Mandalorian, that's what I'd want to see. That would be number one. Give me some R2, give me some Luke, give me Ahsoka. Let's see Ahsoka and Luke meet.
That would be really, really cool. Because we saw their interaction on screen, which is cool, but we never actually got to, see how they met. I would love to see how Leia, Luke, and Ahsoka would actually, end up, talking and stuff. I know there's been fan art of where Ahsoka showed some, where she had a hologram of her and Anakin together, and I think something like that on screen would be very, very cool. Yes, Adam. Did we get a confirmation on the runtime of these episodes? David, I think you said it was just over 70 minutes. That's including credit time, right?
Yeah, the last thing I saw was 76 minutes with credits. So
And in total of
so around 30 minutes an episode, which is par for the course for these shows. But of course, we've talked about it for podcast after podcast after podcast. But Skeleton Crew is the second most expensive TV show in the history of TV after Rings of Power. Yes.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild, considering
right.
Game of Thrones or Game of Thrones, I would think, or House of the Dragon would be.
Right. So that tells you how much they believe in Skeleton Crew. Or I don't know if whatever outside reason why this is super expensive. Looks very cinematic. There's a lot of space stuff. Maybe the story just predicated it to actually have more budget associated to it because of all the things that John Watts wanted to do. Maybe we're bringing in some top tier actors here that haven't been announced. I mean, it could be anything really.
Well, John Watts did such a great job with Spider-Man, right? That I'm optimistic to see what he does here.
Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire
directing. 4? Is he doing 4 of them? I think.
So John Watts is directing episode 1 and episode 8.
Oh, it's only 2 episodes for some reason.
Yes, only 2 episodes, but he's essentially running the show.
Do we know what Favreau or Filoni's input was on this one, or?
Very, very little. They were basically. It feels like everything that I've seen and heard is that they were kind of like the fact checkers in a way. They were sort of like a de facto story group to Skeleton Crew. When John Watts would ask Dave Filoni, "Is this okay?" Filoni would say, "Yes, it's okay." And then, of course, they reviewed the story to see if it conflicted with any of their existing stories that they have ongoing that would have canon not make sense. And I think they basically okayed everything that they wanted to do in this show. But, of course, this show does include Vane, who appeared in the Book of Boba Fett, who was one of the pirates under Gorian Shard. Salad the Hutt there and is escaped, and now he is the connective tissue from the Skeleton Crew to the Mandoverse. So
it wouldn't surprise me if at some point we see Mando and Grogu.
Yeah. Here's the thing.
I definitely want to talk about that because there was that whole backlash in the Book of Boba Fett when we got the Mandalorian full blown episode in there, and people didn't like it. I heard a lot of saying, "Oh my gosh, why did they do this? This is the Book of Boba Fett. This is not the Mandalorian." But I mean, it was great. It was those two episodes he was in were fantastic, and it added to
I
the
know.
lore.
I know that, but the thing is, though, those two episodes to me, like we dived more into the lore in those two episodes because not only did we get Mandalorian and Grogu, but we got Luke, we got Ahsoka, and we also dived more
Don't forget
into
R2.
the past. Right, and R2, and we dived more into the past of Grogu, which all that was anticipated for season 3, and we got that in the book of Boba Fett. And Boba even made, like, he wasn't even in one of the episodes, and then he made a cameo in the other for maybe like a minute, maybe 30 seconds. So,
well, I mean,
I understand where people are coming from, like, for that.
But I think what happened is Grogu was probably written out for season 3, and Disney was like, "No, you don't. He's too popular. You're putting him in. Find a way to get him in, and before episode or season 3 of Mandalorian starts."
I don't think that was the case at all.
Huh?
I think Grogu. I don't think that was the case at all. I think Grogu was going to be there the whole time, anyways. I think this was that whole thing with Mando being in the Book of Boba Fett. To me personally, it feels like it was just Jon Favreau just riffing and wanted to do that. Because I mean that's his character. That's what he felt the story kind of called for, and that was kind of his decision. I don't think anything else outside of that. And to me, his reaction to the whole thing was that it was absolutely fine, and it was the way it should go. And if he saw any of the backlash to it, he acted like it didn't affect him at all. If he did see any of the backlash, which, I mean, you presume they do read everything they can possibly read and hear. So I don't know. That was his decision. And he showed up at Star Wars Celebration. And he had his whole big exhibit that he brought that he paid for to bring to Star Wars Celebration, which was awesome. Yeah. And Jon Favreau was just randomly walking around that place in the museum part of Celebration. I really wish that I attended it at the exact time they opened it up, because apparently he was just walking around talking to fans. But I waited to the very last moments. Colin actually got me in pretty quickly. So, but Colin, your pitch to Lucasfilm, what is your idea that you would pitch to Lucasfilm?
Oh man,
we all know what's coming.
Yes, I mean, honestly,
My
I think
life with Max Rebo. Sorry,
Rebo and me.
That is the dream. But honestly, it's live action Clone Wars. I really, really want live action Clone Wars. And that dream might become a reality here. I mean, I can really see them announcing it. And Hayden and Ewan both want to put on that Clone Wars armor, and they really, really want to go back. I could see them doing it for a limited series.
And Sam Jackson could come back too.
Yes, because he's been wanting to come back as Mace Windu too, and he's getting up there in age, and I think that this might be a good way to get that closure for him of playing Mace Windu one last time, because he's been campaigning for ever since Disney got the rights back. He's been like, I really want to be Mace Windu again. So yeah, honestly, live action Clone Wars, I can see it definitely happening.
I think Natalie, she said that she's receptive to coming back too.
Yeah. Seeing her in live action again too, and where she's probably getting more action scenes, like fighting droids and stuff, kind of like what she did in her character in the Clone Wars would be awesome. Man, yeah, honestly, all that would be a dream come true. And again, next year is the 20th.
Colin? What if we get Luke Skywalker and then get Clone Wars?
That would be amazing, dude. That would be fantastic. Because here's the thing: next year is the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith. We are already getting some new Revenge of the Sith merch. They announced today that they're doing a Lego Arc 170, which we first saw Revenge of the Sith, but it's just we're slowly, we're getting more, Avenge the Sith stuff. And I guarantee you that would be a perfect way to celebrate that, would be to announce, hey, Hayden and Ewan and Natalie are coming back. And it would just be amazing to see that in live action.
I think we're getting that announcement in Japan, actually.
Yeah.
I think it's happening.
That is what I'm talking about, is like, we'll probably get that announcement and celebration. So I'm going to be, and I think I said it a couple of podcasts back, but I'm going to be calling David like every hour, because I'm not going to be able to make it, unfortunately, this year, because that's close to the date that my child will be born. So I can't go this year, but I'll be going to the next one. But yeah, so no, I am shooting for live action Clone Wars. That's like my
child Chewbacca.
Chewie.
No. Nope. You guys will have to wait and see. We are having the gender reveal this weekend. So, but
yeah, it's either going to be Luke or Leia. So,
okay.
My pitch to Lucasfilm. I mean, I have so many. I have like the live action Clone Wars would be fantastic. I've always talked about on the podcast, we can do Obi-Wan season 2 and have Hayden and Ewan there. They never meet in the show. We just have like, it's essentially like an Obi-Wan Vader show, but you can just call it Obi-Wan season 2 because Obi-Wan, of course, is.
I wouldn't be opposed to it, but it's like they cannot meet again. They just can't.
Yeah, they're not.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I totally think that's they get it, and they've heard everyone talk, and but yeah, I definitely think Ewan's coming back.
So incredible that episode was like unbelievable.
Yes, that was like near perfection, I think. But yeah, that and Obi-Wan season 2. But I would really love for them to go back in time and maybe do some Knights of the Republic. I mean, there's so many books, there's so many canon novels, Disney canon novels that they could do that are just tremendous stories. I think of immediately Lost Stars that takes place during the original trilogy era. And you get to see the Death Star again. You get to see Star Destroyers, X-Wings. I mean, there's just so much out there. You could do a whole Revan trilogy. The Jedi and Sith Wars, a Sith army on screen would be fantastic. Have a true point of view of the dark side and told through the eyes of the dark side, which is what we all thought we were going to get with the Acolyte, but didn't happen. So, I mean, there's so many things out there, man. I think about it all the time, and my hope one day for at a Star Wars Celebration, if it's not announced yet, just at the very first panel when it's just all silent, we're just all waiting for the first person to come out, have like Natalie Portman walk on stage, and of course everyone's gonna go freak out. Wouldn't it be something if Hayden and Natalie Portman came out together on stage, didn't say anything, they'd get like a 10-minute standing ovation?
I mean, that would probably happen.
Like the Death Star.
That would be a big deal. Seeing those three on screen would be a big deal. But if they did that, I will have to say this is that Matt Lanter, James Arnold Taylor, and Ashley Eckstein, that entire Clone Wars crew, seriously, they may. I'm seeing the comment, but I'm having a moment here. Stay focused. They honestly made the story of the prequels more in depth. So when you get to Revenge of the Sith, you feel the pain and the suffering that happens in Order 66, and the relationship that the clones had with the clones had with their Jedi generals and commanders, and you understand of everything and of going on in the Senate and the of where they were trying to get to start the rebellion and everything. And it just makes it so more. It's more emotional when you watch episode 3, and it's because of the Clone Wars TV show. So when they do that, I really hope that they. I mean, of course, they'll involve Dave Filoni, but they really need to involve the original team of the Clone Wars in that. Just because it is. And if you haven't watched the Clone Wars, for people who are watching and listening, please do, and watch it in chronological order, because of it. It just makes it so. It makes the show so much better. But I'm telling you, it would be a real shame if they didn't involve like the original Clone Wars crew in the live action Clone Wars show. They would have to do it in some way, have them have a cameo. Maybe they like sit down and talk to the actors more. But if they don't have involvement from the original Clone Wars team, I would be very sad, because they really helped those characters come to life, and it made us fall in love with those characters even more. So that's where I'm coming from that. But I do have to go, but I'll be back for the post show. But yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. See you later, Colin.
I mean, I think right now, like, it seems like Disney's trying to figure out where they're going with Star Wars. And because of all the hate from Acolyte, they're probably considering slowing down. But, Star Wars is such a unique niche that they have to figure out a way to please the fans, but also get new people involved in the series and the shows and the movies, and it's tough. It's such a very critical fan base,
Yeah, if they did do a live action Clone Wars, it would hit a sweet spot in the fandom where it would be optimal, and it would make a lot of business sense for them to do that. And I think a lot of us, even the older generation, would love to see that continuation, because we have seen the animated Clone Wars stuff, and we know there, like Colin talked about, there's a lot of depth and there's a lot of like real richness and story in those times. And there's actually a lot of Clone Wars stories that we didn't get in the animated show. So there's a lot to stuff to mine in the Clone Wars.
The only struggle for me with the Clone Wars idea is that you have to find a story that's worthy enough of creating its own 8 episodes. You know what I mean? Like, how could something possibly top Darth Maul versus Ahsoka, or bringing back Darth Maul, or some of the amazing things like Order 66 that we saw and get made. You know what I mean? It has to feel important enough to be made. And so I think that may be part of their struggle.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I understand what you're saying. But there's always, I mean, there are some theories out there on the net about certain storylines that have not been yet confirmed by Lucasfilm, and still have that window of actually being confirmed. And the real big story, I think, that's out there that hasn't been, that's really kind of a fan theory. It's about the Kryze family. How we knew that Obi-Wan and Duchess Satine did love each other. And of course, if you saw the Clone Wars, we all know what happens with Duchess Satine, which is Bo-Katan's sister. And there was a questionable kind of parentage situation in the Clone Wars. Yeah.
Right? Corky.
Which might be the son of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And we all know that Bo-Katan claims that she is the last in the line of the Kryze family. And if Corky's still out there, that's not the case. And maybe we can continue something there. I don't know. That's just kind of one of the loose ends that could be kind of tied up. Countdown City Geek says T-minus 7 minutes. So
now hang on. Obi-Wan did say that he thinks he had a brother.
Well, way back in the beginning, the very beginning, almost 50 years ago, the story was that Owen Lars was Obi-Wan's brother. And that was kind of just, it wasn't, I don't think, official canon, but I think it was in some like books or something back then. Then of course that's all been changed. But yeah, the narrative of him having a brother or a sibling out there could be a thing.
But
Definitely
he
could be
did
a
say it
thing.
in the Obi-Wan show to Princess Leia.
Yes, that's true. But we don't know who that person is. But of course, yeah, that could also come to be an important plot point in some future story.
Well, I think that's why they kind of put it out there, like, hey, let's just put this in here just in case we want to do something with it later.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Ewan is so game to come back to Star Wars. Same thing with Hayden Christensen. They're constantly doing the convention circuit. They were here just this past October for SpaceCon. We were there. They were just tremendous on stage. Especially Ewan. Ewan feels like he's kind of in his groove, doing these panels, talking to the fans. And I want to say back when he did the prequels, he thought he was going to get this type of love back then. But of course, the internet wasn't around the way it is now. And now with the way that the internet has evolved with social media, everyone can come and see him anytime he goes to do a convention. And he has great interactions with people. I had a priceless interaction with Ewan McGregor back in 2022 at Anaheim at Star Wars Celebration. And I've talked about that a lot on the podcast. But yeah, I mean, the stars are aligning. The stars are truly aligning for at least the prequel cast to come back and do something really, really epic. And I would bet more so that we're going to get a live action Clone Wars type of scenario over just about anything at this point. I would love to see a Vader series. And a lot of people will chirp back on that saying, oh, well, we got a Vader story. It's called the prequels. Well, no, not really. I want to see him in the suit doing stuff. And of course, we saw that in Obi-Wan, but I want to see a standalone Vader thing. That's when you can have Natalie Portman come back, because that's when you can explore his PTSD, all of his nightmares, all of what could have been. You can explore the what if scenarios between him, Obi-Wan, and Padme, and it could be great. But yeah, there's so many possibilities in the Star Wars universe that I hope we do get the stuff that I think we're kind of thinking and putting out there in the universe, especially on our podcast. I do
think we're gonna get Vader in Andor this season. I think we're gonna get him.
I say there's a 45% chance as of right now.
45%.
Yeah. So it feels like they're going to pull out a lot of stops in Andor season 2 because it's the last season. This is the last time we're going to be there with these people. So, I mean, we're getting Krennic back. Ben Mendelsohn's back. K2SO's back. We're going to get Tarkin back. We're going to get Vader there next to Tarkin. I mean, the opportunities are ripe. I mean, it's all kind of there. So, we're about 3 minutes away from showtime. I think we're going to drop here from the pre-show and join back up with you guys. Hopefully you join back up with us for the post-show. We're going to have more people on and have our instant reaction to the episode 1, episode 2 premiere of Skeleton Crew on Disney+. So come on back. Just look for us. Just look online for us. And you'll find us. So in the meantime, for Craig 5, for Colin, my name's David. May the Force be with you.
Homies. May the Force be with you.
Always.